do you think about these studios wanting to make you, as a background actor, hand over your likeness so they could do whatever they want with it without you getting compensated for it?
I'll tell you this. I've been a background for quite some time. And to get up one day after putting so many decades into this career, to be told that, we're going to be eliminated because they're just going to take our photos once and then use us for the other 13 episodes or the other 20 episodes, depending if it's a sitcom or a drama. It's unbelievable that they would actually ask someone, allow us to use you even though, we're not going to pay you. I mean, their residuals alone for stuff of the past is laughable. This isn't laughable. This is like, what the hell is wrong with you people?
Exactly. My guest today is a pro at background work. Um, we don't talk about this very much, but there are people who actually make their living as background actors in Hollywood. And so we are going to get all into what it takes. My guest today is the amazing John Rosario Jr., better known as Jhonny Rox Hollywood. You and I go all the way back to the Comedy Store a bazillion years ago, when you were out here in Hollywood, and now you are in the land of Hawaii. So I want to know what got you interested, first of all, in background work.
Background work came by accident because I used to be a crisis manager for low income families, and at the time, AIDS was a big thing. So I handled mostly people who had AIDS and low T cell counts because the city at that time gave them more money to live on. So I got people homes and places to live. Throughout that time, somehow I found someone came up to me and said, "Listen, Carlito's Way is filming and they need like 200 Puerto Ricans to show up." Now, at that time, I was already out, but not out the way you can be in 2023. But I still had very long hair and I looked like I never left the 70s, even though we were in the 90s. So I got online at Carlito's Way and they pulled me out. I was number three. I got there at 4:30 in the morning. I didn't want to wait long, and they pulled me out of the line. And because I'm sure we'll talk about this later. I had some really negative experiences trying to go up, the celebrity ladder as an artist. And when they pulled me out, I thought I was gonna get we don't want gay speech, or you're not what we want, which is a veiled you're gay speech. And instead, the guy turns me around and looks at everybody and says, "You see this guy's costume?" And I stop him right there and I go, "Sir, this is not a costume. This is my outfit from work." But it was 70s because I dressed very vintage. So he said, "If anybody else here does not look like this guy, we want you to just go home because we're only looking for people with wigs like this." And then I looked at him and said, "Sir, this is not a wig," because it was really all my hair. So that's how I ended up getting the bug. And I knew that even at $45 a day as a non union, and I didn't know what union and non union was yet. But all I knew was that it was the greatest fun that you could have chasing Al Pacino up and down the subway with Brian De Palma, who is just a celebrated, wonderful director. So my debut as a background was a big one.
You did Carlito's Way, it was fun. What made you decide at that moment, or maybe not that moment, but early on, I think I like doing this? What was it about background work?
I had exposure because when I was a kid, I used to play hooky, what they call skipping school today. You say hooky, they don't know what you're talking about. And I used to skip school and sneak into All My Children, One Life to Live, Loving, and Ryan's Hope. And because I was such a small child, nobody ever questioned me just walking through a studio. So I always had interest. I always did stupid things that my parents would kill me for if they found out I did. And then at some point, when I became a crisis worker, one of my clients secretly paid for me to go to the American Comedy Institute to study with Stephen Rosenfeld on Broadway.
So before we go any further, I just want to let people know you are also a stand-up and you've been doing it for a long, long time as well.
That wasn't my debut when I went to the school. I'm sorry, I should backtrack a little. When I was 16 years old, I got my GED and I left town. I witnessed a murder. It's a long story, but I just didn't want to be in New York. I didn't want to be part of a trial, and I ended up at Jeff Valdez's Comedy Corner. And Jeff himself was not
In
involved with the
Colorado.
casting that day.
In
Yeah, in Colorado
Colorado.
Springs. I ended up going in to use the bathroom, and then when I came out, I went into the room to find out what was going on, what all the noise was about. And when they heard my New York accent, apparently somebody from New York didn't make it that day, and they assumed that I was him. And since I had a fake ID that said I was 7 years older than I really was, they accused me of having a great accent, and I found that to be racist. So I cursed them out. They found that even funnier than Sam Kinison. And so they had me come back at 6 o'clock, and I remember Roseanne went up after me and Louis Anderson. It was like 1990, so they were on their way, and they became superstars. But that was my first experience with stand up, and I didn't do it again for a decade or more.
And then you went to New York and someone paid for you to go to comedy school?
And I ended up
Wow.
packing my stuff and leaving to LA.
Walk me through the process of you, because you don't just get on a set. You have to audition or you have to submit for extra
At
work.
least, at least Central Casting. I was lucky. Eddie almost helped me. Eddie almost got me 2 jobs. When I arrived, what happened was some years ago, you don't know this, Eddie almost had a book that he had released in 2000 or 99. It was about Latino heritage. And so there was an expo, and he arrived late, but his items arrived early. I forgot what product I was pushing. All I know is that I realized that I saw his name and stuff, and I was just excited that we were his next door neighbors. So I'm waiting for him. You know, I saw Stand and Deliver. I thought you were wonderful in it. I don't know why you didn't get an Academy Award nomination, but we'll talk about that later. I personally was excited, and then I saw someone go under his table, take out a book, and start walking away. So I walked up to the guy and I snatched it from him. So when I turned around, they started doing the New York thing. Like if someone sees someone take something and no one's looking, everyone starts to do the dash. I threw myself across Eddie's table. I never met Eddie. I'm over here risking getting my butt kicked all over New York at this expo in Manhattan. And I took all the boxes away and I put them under my table. Now, when Eddie gets there, he's hysterical because his boxes are not there. And I explained to him, you know, sir, I have your boxes. I didn't even say I want your autograph. I was just so scared that he thought we took them. So I gave them back to him. And as I'm walking away, he reaches out with his 2 little fingers and he grabs my collar. He goes, "Where do you think you're going, John?" And I go, "What do you mean? I'm selling this stuff over there." He goes, "Oh, no, I talked to your boss. You belong to me now until 5 o'clock." So I stood there helping him sell his books. And it was an autograph signing. And you know how they do it where you buy it?
Yes.
You then have to, you know, people come and get the autograph.
Right.
So I was lucky. So when I got to LA, my very first 24 hours when I got there, I called him from the hotel late at night and he returned my call at 5:30 in the morning. And he sent me to Jeff and another lady named Valdez that was a casting director.
Blanca Valdez.
Probably. Blanca, yes. She tried her best to place me, but I was too unusual, my character. She knew I was talented, but I was either too effeminate or I just was not fitting in, but it didn't stop her from, you know what? She kept her door open for me for the 5 years that she met me.
Did you then go to Central Casting for work? What is it that you got you rolling when you got to LA?
Okay, I was very fortunate, and I'll try to make it quick. When I finally got into LA, I ended up living in at least 2 or 3 different addresses, but I started in West Hollywood. I ended up getting a job at Bristol Farms. I ended up getting a job at Baja Fresh. I ended up getting a job at Coffee Bean. So these were all the places that everybody coming in from the valley or going through the valley to the studios stopping in the morning. So whether you were on People Magazine or you were on People Magazine 50 years ago, when you came in, I would go, "Miss Nicole, good morning. How are you today?" And they would go like, "How do you know my name?" And I'll be like, "I've enjoyed your work since 1974, and I think that your best work was probably in '82, and I hope you're still working." You know, I would say stuff like that,
Mhm.
and next thing you know, I'm a maid in someone's house. I was a butler. I ended up getting people telling me where to go. Sorry about the lighting. My house is haunted. So at some point, I started to hear that word, something I never heard before. Are you union? And every time I said no, someone would go, "Oh." because they had something for me, but it had to be union. Because back then it wasn't SAG-AFTRA,
Right. It
it
was
was
just
just
SAG.
SAG, and
Right.
you had to pay all that money up front. And I didn't have $2,400 in 2001. You know, I got to LA with barely 800, and Jeff Valdez gave me 1,500.
So you went to central casting. Did you have pictures? Did you have a resume? Did you just show up? What was it that you did at central casting?
The first time I was unprepared. The second time I was prepared because I was one of those people, like when you're walking on the street that the director says, just grab Lydia over there on the corner and you fill out the paperwork. So you don't really go to the central casting because you're not going to do it again that you know of. So this was the first time I had to go out to Burbank. And when you go there, I mean, this is the old days. I don't know what the new rules are. When you went there, you went with at least 2 outfits. You got there early. You made sure you had cash. They didn't take checks, things like that. And
Hmm.
then once they take your photographs, they ask you to please remain in the look that you've given them. Don't bleach your hair the next day, because if they send you out on a TV show, they're not expecting a blonde. They're expecting a brunette, and you can screw that up. Not just for you, but they'll put a mark.
When you say cash, um, that was to join. You had to pay to join. It wasn't just you came and you
There were
gave your.
fees. There were
There were.
there were administrative fees for it. Yes, because um, there was no guarantee, and that's how come the booking agents became popular. And then, like crypto, nobody wanted to touch them because people abused the power. Um, but usually, once you went to central casting, because it's LA, the jobs were plenty. For someone not to get even one day of work and make back the $35 that we had to pay back then you had a problem.
When did you get to become union?
Oh my God, what a nightmare. Lydia, I got it 2 years ago after 30 years.
Wow.
And only because every movie that was SAG eligible for me that I participated or spoke in, none of them filed the paperwork, including Hawaii Five-O for me. Not a single
Wow.
one. When they went through all the records, they said, we can't give it to you unless you got the stubs. And I was elated. You know why? I have every stub from 1993 until today physically in my file cabinet. So I sent them all in, and they were like, you can stop at the 30th one. We just need those two on the top. I was like, thank you. Because I couldn't believe it. I was even a stand-in, which is very exciting. It's like an upgrade from background.
So you mentioned something. It was on my list to ask, but you just brought it up, so I'm going to ask it. As a background, what are the opportunities you get to upgrade when you're on set? What are the different opportunities?
Let me give you the ugly first. The ugly is, and this is just what I've been told, and I don't expect you to politically agree with me, so feel free to jump down my throat if I offend you. But if you're a career background because you don't have a desire to speak in front, you don't like to talk in front, then this is for you. This is a money making future, especially if they don't AI screw the crap out of us. If you wanna proceed, at some point you don't want to stay there too long because they don't like background act. They don't believe in us. They see most of us as inexperienced people that are just filling in the gap. And the shame of it is that also applies to all the jobs around the world. They don't hire from within. I've been waiting. I've had a T-shirt that says "Hire me from within" for so long, and I have my sad days. And maybe on 1 or 2 days I'm even pissed, um, but I still believe in background work because of what it is. It's the industry's layers.
If someone wants to be a background actor, if they don't have a desire to move up the ladder, can you talk about some of the challenges you face as a background actor?
The only challenge that you would have as a background actor, depending on the state you live in and the market. In Hawaii, it's pretty hard. We have to wait for the bigger productions like Pirates of the Caribbean or Jurassic sequels or Godzilla. That's when everyone you always. That's the one good thing about Hawaii. It's even smaller than Hollywood. So you get to see all your old friends from the same movies that we've all been making together for 20 years. But since COVID, it's dropped a lot, and so a lot of us, we begin to notice things that usually wouldn't bother us, although it should. Like when we see that one person that always gets a job that's supposed to be a rotational position. Why does she get it? Why did he get it? You know, I call it the Meryl Streep syndrome.
That's hilarious. I want to talk about some of the challenges that I see in doing background work. That's how I started in the business. I did a few extra jobs, I did a few movies. I did it for 6 months. That was my goal, was to do extra work for 6 months, learn as much as I could about being on set, how things work. And then the 6 month, I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm ready to now go look for acting work. But there were a few things that I found that were very challenging. First of all, the long hours, the low pay, that you had to shoot that scene over and over and over sometimes, and you still had to
The
keep your
things you
energy up.
didn't know.
Right. But to me, they are challenges. The lack of recognition, the disrespect. Sometimes I found it so offensive that as an extra, you had to wait in the back of the line until everybody else ate
I have a
before
good
you
one
could
for
eat.
you.
Okay.
Okay, now like you, when I since my debut movie was a big budget movie like Carlito's Way, things where we were treated a little different. And since we were in New Yorkers are hard asses anyway. We wouldn't care as long as you don't talk about my mother. We fine. So I got no idea of what proper etiquette is supposed to be on a set until I went to Warner Brothers Studios. And that's when I noticed how the craft line would set out the nice food, and they would warn, especially if you were non-union and a union person saw you, they want to gain points because they think that by ratting you out, they'll get a speaking part. So it didn't happen to me, but I watched it happen to others, right? So I began that etiquette. I caught the etiquette of they don't want to be looked in the eye, not because they don't want to talk to people, but right now they're trying to make $50 million on this movie, and we're counting on them to be a character that's believable. And if they stop to talk to you, they're bringing down the level of what they're going to give you on film. So I learned not to talk to them, but not because they weren't snotty, but it'll get your ass in trouble. The last one I learned, which is the most important, between the PA and the AD, you listen to them. If they have to talk to you twice, already you're on alert. And if you're a career person, and God forbid you're popular like me, if I screw up on a set, I could not get called for 6 months because I'd be like, oh, Jhonny, oh, the heck with that one. But otherwise, people love me on set because I'm pretty experienced, and usually they count on me to keep everybody quiet. So those are the three main rules. Listen, or maybe fourth is always be on time. Never wander off and be on time. That's another one that can get you fired. And the story I'm getting to, I was on a show called Yes Dear. It was a comedy on CBS. And it was the episode of Speed Dating. If you watch it, you'll see me with red hair. So, in this episode, they called lunch early. When they called lunch early, there were maybe only 16 of us for that episode. So, because there were only 16 of us for that episode, they sent us first. We all got online. Now, all of us were experienced. We were all extras for years on plenty of shows. But for most of us, it was the first time on Radford, and we didn't want any trouble. So we all got online. We all had the trays in our hands. Some of us had already scooped food, and all of a sudden, we see the doors open up, and the cast walks in. On cue, everybody went like this and walked away. All 4 cast members walked with their arms open like this and said, where are you going? Go ahead, you guys go first. And they went all the way to the back of the 16 people lined to wait. In my whole career, I've never seen any cast member do that for us. And I'm not going to mention the shows where they were rude to us, but there were some shows where it was obvious that we were nobodies.
One of the things that I will say about experienced background actors, as a new actor coming on a set, they are very well informed and they could help you. My first, after I did my 6 months of background work, I got my first union job. And so I went to work the first day. It was great. And when I was leaving, no one told me I was coming back the next day. And I didn't know about call sheets. I didn't know anything. So I mean, I was new I was pretty new in LA. And so I took up a temp job. And I was like, it's kind of weird that no one's called me to tell me to come back. I don't understand it. And at the time, we had just had, it was the time when they were just making answering machines. And
How
yeah,
far
it
back?
was right around that time. So I listened and I had like 10 calls back to back. Where are you? That you're needed on the set. The casting director called, my agent called, blah blah blah, and I started crying, bawling like a baby. I left the
I
temp
would
job.
too.
I lost the temp job, but I ran to, and it was on Radford at the Radford studio, MTM at the time. And I ran, got there, and the set was quiet because it had been like maybe 3 hours that I should have been on the set. So I get there, and then the I had made friends with the makeup man, and he said, "What happened?" I said, "No one told me I had to come in today." He said, "I knew it." And the thing that saved me was that the second AD, who is the person in charge to give the call times, did not give me the call time. He says, I left your message. I said, I never got any messages.
Human error.
Never got any messages. But what
Did you
was
shoot the
great,
scene?
oh, of course I did. Of course. But
Thank God.
what was great was when I finished, we broke for lunch and I had a whole group of background actors take me and school me on everything I needed. I've never forgotten it. I I use everything they told me back then today. To have a little notebook, you keep the times when when your call times are, when the lunch breaks are. If you have to bring in your wardrobe, to keep a notebook of all of that. And that was so helpful, and I am so grateful for these background actors because they schooled me, and they made me feel like I was okay. Like there was no shame. It wasn't your fault, but here's what you need to do. I have never forgotten it, and I have such a respect for background actors because, like I said earlier, the challenges are great. Yes, you get to be on a set. Yes, you get to be around famous people, but many times you can't talk to them. They move you to the AD or the PA will move you to the side. They'll make you stand in the rain. They will, you don't get any privileges. There are no privileges for background.
You had an experience that when you told me about it cracked me up, but we were in a rush that day, so I didn't tell you. You and I have a similar experience of when an AD tells you to do something the director does not want, and then all of a sudden you're stuck between two people, and what you don't want is to get fired and make everybody happy. That is one awkward situation. And one of the photographs that I sent you when I was on the show Cold Case, when actor John Billingsley is leaving the scene, he's a free man, even though he should have been in jail. So the scene called for John to get up in a very slow, dramatic Hollywood noir fashion, leave the interrogation room, walk through the main booking area where we all are working as detectives, right? I have a white shirt with a haircut similar to this one. And the director looked at us all before this scene was shot. And he says, when Mr. Billingsley walks through, everyone is to look up and freeze frame as he continues to walk. Easy enough. They ring the bell, and before the boom guy says sound is rolling, the AD walks over to me and says, I need you, when he passes you, to turn your head the other way. I didn't know that the director wanted that one to be the martini shot, check the gate. He wanted to get the hell out of there. AD had different plans. So when I did that, it ruined. We had to stay another hour and a half because they now had to do the back shots of it. But the director came up to me full steam ahead, and just as I went like this, the AD jumped in. Because obviously, I'm not going to do something especially on a CBS show that's number one. Because one director that sent me home, well, I'll never forget, was Jonathan Kaplan. But he was known for sending a lot of people background. He didn't treat background actors nicely back then. I'm sure he's a changed man because him and I became friends. But he had a very bad habit where if you crossed an actor, meaning that if an actor was giving a line and you didn't walk behind the actor and instead you crossed in front, you were immediately sent home.
Let's talk about networking and building relationships as a background actor.
Today it's easier.
Okay. How was it how was it when you first started?
In the old days, I did the flyers door to door, made my own. There was no internet, so I literally had to go place to place, bar to bar. Now I do the internet. To be honest, my needle career does this. It's never done this as far as numbers.
It's not done it yet.
But as far as my satisfying complete strangers up to hundreds of thousands of people at once, 1,000 or 100, whatever, I'm always the hit of the show and I'm always asked to return. I don't know why, I've never been able to make more than a check to check career out of it. And there's nothing to be ashamed of being a check to check entertainer.
No, there isn't anything. And sometimes what is lacking, it's not talent, it's knowing what to do next, how to follow through. Because we are in a business that it is about who relationships.
And who surrounds you.
Yeah, I'll just say this real quick. I've got a online course that kind of walks actors through how to network, how to build relationships, what you need to do. Because a lot of times, what I have found over the years, and I've been doing this over 40 years, is that a lot of times actors are waiting for the magic door to open. Let me help you. But that's not how the business works.
No.
The business works with, how do you position yourself to get to the next level? What steps can you take to get to the next level? Okay, I've been doing extra work for 2 years now, and so I want to get roles. So the next stop would be to find agents to rep you that specializes in day players, so that you are moving into getting a couple of lines. Because if you're waiting on someone to upgrade you on set, that may never come. You might have you might be on a set where they've got everything already lined up. They're not looking to advance anybody. So as an actor, if you want to break out of background work, the next level is to say, okay, let me get with an agency that works with under 5 actors. And when I say under 5, meaning they have 5 or less lines, and then they can go from there. And it's just, it's building the career so that you can get where you want to go. I love what you said, because I know so many actors, and throughout my whole career, that didn't move forward because they were waiting for someone else to welcome them in. And this business, you're not being welcomed in. They're not going to welcome you in. So you have to have a game plan and a strategy of, okay, where do I want to go? How do I want to move?
It's a hard balance to live, no matter what you do in the artist industry. But as far as the background acting, it was a solid career for me. I lived in LA, living off of working on ER, George Lopez, Cold Case, Gilmore Girls, Two and a Half Men, The West Wing, 10 Things I Like About You, Friends, Joey. I mean, there was a golden age for us in the 2000s, except for the summer when everybody goes on vacation. You're on your own if you're not union. But it was great work, and the training that I got was, you know it'll last for a lifetime, because when you're a background actor, you're seeing things from the bottom up. Whereas if you become a star overnight and they drag you from the top and you don't know the bottom, sometimes that works against you. Yeah, I will not work at a restaurant whose food I haven't eaten. That's my motto.
I love it. I love it. Well, I want to ask you, where do you want to be in 5 years? What would you like to be doing with your career?
I hope that whatever I'm doing, that I am returning to my career and to whoever believes in me enough to give me the work, that I don't squander their opportunity, and that I make them want to double the amount of time they work with me.
All right. And what can you tell some a young person who wants to get in the business and start doing background work? Be nice. Be nice, Johnny. Be nice.
I'm just not getting used to hearing those words at me. I'm only 23. What would I tell a young person that's just starting out in this work? I would ask them what kind of a career is this. Just a I'm going to McDonald's until I can get through college job, or if this is a real job. If it's a real job, obviously I would tell them as soon as possible to register with their local casting agency. So if they're in Los Angeles, that would be Central Casting. Then I would find out through Central Casting what offices around the country that they have that might be the one nearest to me. If they're going to go to agents, the only advice I would give them is never pay anyone in advance for work you're getting. Someone who takes you on as a client means that they're taking you on as a client. Unless they're your attorney for a future criminal case, there is no reason for you to be putting money in anyone's pocket. 3, and this is the most important, read your contracts, because they will be changing, or with especially all this AI stuff.
And as far as being on a set, I know you went through it before, but can you go back through it? What a list of key
Absolutely.
things they need to know?
Absolutely. Everybody gets an email, a phone call, or both from production every time they're going to go to work. Sometimes they'll miss it, but you do get a call. That means that you are responsible for being there on time. You getting up in the morning requires that you check your email and check any central phone number they provide you as a background actor, because weather can change. An actor could not make it to work and they decide to shoot something else. There can be any professional reason, and you can end up being late or end up showing to work and nobody's there.
And how should they navigate being on set? Should they become friendly with other background actors? Should they be quiet? Should
That's
they what is the
You know what? That's a question you and I can't answer. You know why? Because we don't know the world and we don't know how people are going to act. What we can say is the best thing you can do is be there on time. Listen to what you are directed to do. Never speak unless they tell you you guys have a break. Otherwise, be silent at all times, especially when a director is present.
Johnny, thank you so much for joining us. This was wonderful. Thank you. If people want to find you online to find out about your shows, where can they go?
Jhonny Rox Hollywood, Instagram, Facebook, everything.
And if you want to know more about Acting Smarter Now, go to actingsmarter.com. We got a planner, we got an online course. We have what you need in order to help you level up your career.